Hello, everybody. My goodness, we have a full house. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the Mehlville Board of Education February 2nd, 2023, 6:30 p.m. meeting to order. If we could all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I'd like to do roll call. Jeff Woolman?
Yes.
Patrick McKelvey?
Present.
Grace Wright?
Yes.
Scott Hugerich?
Present.
Tori Belke?
Here.
Jean Preto?
Present.
And I'm Peggy Hassler. And I'd also like to welcome our student reps for the Board of Education, Jenna Jobber and Eric Plasterer. Okay, if I could please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is communications. We are going to recognize our great staff, students, and community volunteers. First up is Scope with Mr. Scott McMullen.
Good evening, everyone. I look forward to really presenting to you all. I'd like to introduce Mrs. Dina McKelvey. She's going to discuss some of the social emotional learning interventions that we're implementing at Scope, and I'll explain a little bit more how that's our student. Ms. McKelvey.
Hi, everyone. So we did have a slideshow. Do I just click this? Oh, there it is. So I would like to tell you a little bit about the Scope curriculum we're using at Scope this year. It's Why Try curriculum. I push into Mr. Boyd's class twice a month, and we use Why Try, which is a vetted curriculum meant to improve social interactions for our students with peers and also with authority figures. These are some examples of some of the lessons. The reality ride is the idea that our students are sometimes in a loop, and we want to make sure they have those supports so they can go forward to their goals. Labels, we only want to present the labels that we want, and we don't let anyone put labels on us. And then, of course, defense mechanisms are tools that we can use when we are interacting with our friends and authority figures. This is the first year we had our Thanksgiving feast. It was a big deal. All the teachers brought in food. We had turkey and stuffing and green beans and all the fixins and pie. And we even had chafing dishes. We were very fancy. And the kids were very excited about the food. Now, they weren't excited about getting their picture taken, but they were excited about the food. I interviewed some of the students who participated. James is a 12th grader, and he said that Scope is just a regular school, that he liked the label lesson the most. It's what resonated for him, and he also said that the lessons that with Mr. Boyd and myself were relatable to him. Kamaya, who's actually here tonight, talked to me about this idea that other people don't get to dictate our behavior. We get to dictate it. We don't, and our reactions is up to us. She also talked about her favorite lesson being about labels. She also said that the teachers at Scope really cared about her and really challenged her. So thank you, Kamaya, for being here tonight. Robert is also here tonight, so I'm very excited that they were here to share in this. He said that he felt like the lessons were helping him think about his future, giving him a different perspective, and also he felt like he could get his work done at Scope. We also had Terry, who's an 11th grader, and he said the label lesson was also his favorite, and he said that he turned his life around and he is going to graduate, so we're very excited for him. And these are just some pictures of us having fun. Unfortunately, I had to be in a lot of the pictures, or Mr. Boyd did, but thank you for letting us present tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Kamaya and Robert, for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, next up is Oakville Elementary with Miss Megan Ochoa.
Hi guys, my name is Megan Ochoa and I am the principal of Oakville Elementary, and tonight I would like to recognize our Ambassadors Club. So ambassadors, Oakville Elementary ambassadors, if you would just stand where you're at so we can recognize you. I'm going to say a few words about you guys. I would like to recognize the Oakville Elementary Ambassadors Club this evening. These 5th grade students represent the very best at OES. Our theme this year centers around community, and the Ambassadors Club has served the school and greater community in several ways. A few notable examples include leading the pledge and a school-wide remembrance on the morning of 9/11, organizing food drives for Oakville Elk Club and Mehlville's Fill Up the Pickup Truck event, honoring veterans through planning and organizing and serving them at an OES Veterans Breakfast celebration, creating and delivering small gifts to the Nazareth Living Center throughout the year, and organizing a PTO fundraiser most recently to raise money for a former OES student that is battling cancer. As a result of their efforts, the PTO raised over $1,000 for this student. Thank you to Ms. Peggy Evers, Ms. Debbie LaCabley, and Ms. Deb Ackerson in helping to organize and lead this club. I am so proud of these OES student leaders. I look forward to seeing how they impact the OES community the rest of this year, but more importantly, how they will affect and impact the world in a positive way in the future. So thank you to our ambassadors. We are so proud of you at OES.
Robert and Kamaya, would you be willing to do a picture too, or do you not do pictures? All right, let's do it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Let's go.
So Joe, you're a little shorter. Come up to the front for me so I can see you.
Real snow.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Let's get real snow.
Oh, mine's working now.
All right, so everybody look this way. Keep looking because I'm going to take a bunch in the row. Actually, my friend right here, can you switch out and come out here by those others?
We need 2 photographers tonight. Oops.
All right.
Okay, next up is MNEA, Deanna McKelvey again. Sorry, did you want a break?
No, I'm good to go. Well, thank you so much. I'm Dina McKelvey. I'm president of Mehlville NEA, and tonight I have the distinct pleasure to introduce you to 2 young people. The first is from Oakville Elementary, and if he and his teacher could please approach the podium.
Good evening. It's with great pleasure that we recognize P.D. Mondello, a 4th grader at Oakville Elementary School, and he's in Mrs. Bridgewater's class. P.D. is being recognized for his outstanding character, academic growth, and achievement. P.D. has blossomed at OES and is often praised for his ability to be a role model and display our OES Cares character traits. He's a shining example of a student who cooperates, acts responsibly, respects others, shows effort, and is safe. We are so proud of Petey for making good choices throughout the day. Petey confidentially takes on any new challenge presented to him. He is determined to overcome any obstacle that is put in his way. He will never give up until he reaches his goals. Petey knows firsthand the importance of being courageous. When Petey was in kindergarten, his mom was diagnosed with cancer. Petey's mom taught him to stay strong and to never give up. As Petey's mom fought her courageous battle, Petey's love and determination helped her along her brave journey. Through every challenge, Petey always has a huge smile on his face to share with everyone. Petey's teachers unanimously agreed that his strength of character and big heart make Petey the perfect student to earn this recognition today. Petey's determination and gentle spirit are an inspiration to us all.
All right, our next student that we're honoring is actually from Scope, and her name is Michaela Foster, and I was hoping she could approach the podium. Michaela Foster has a very warm and inviting personality. She is respectful to staff and her peers. She sets goals and works diligently to reach them. She always wants to do her best. If she feels that she could do something better, she would seek out guidance and then attempt the task again. It is an absolute pleasure to have her at Scope, and we know she will continue to succeed in the future. That concludes our presentation.
Okay, good job, Michaela and Petey. Next up, we're going to hear from our student reps, and they're going to tell us a little bit about what's going on at Oakville and Mehlville. Jenna, you want to go first?
Sure. So, course requests and plans for the next school year are in the making at Oakville, meaning it's a busy time. We're hosting a curriculum night on February 7th, so next year's incoming and returning students can see what kind of classes and activities we offer. On February 1st, we hosted an official signing day for senior athletes who have committed to continuing their athletic career in college. Also, members of Family and Career and Community Leaders of America, or FCCLA, will be serving lunch at Rogers Elementary's 60-plus luncheon on February 9th. And lastly, Student Council is hosting their annual Special Olympics basketball event on February 16th.
Thank you. Eric? Eric?
There we go. This week, we also had teachers go over the courses we could take next year. And in our TAP classes, which is like a study hall period, we searched what classes we thought would benefit us in our careers and future. Using that research, we talked with our teachers and prepared for the following 23-24 school year. There will be a student-led conference in the following month where we will sit down with our TAP teachers and our parents and go over what classes we chose. There will be a syllabus tasting on Monday where different teachers from different classes will help students understand more about the class by setting up stations in the gym. And next Saturday, Student Council is hosting our winter dance with the Spirit Week to lead up to the dance.
All right, awesome. Okay. Okay, we do not have anyone signed up for patron comments, so we will move on to governance. Technology report, I'm assuming Paul Westbrook.
Hey, greetings, and thank you for having me tonight to speak about technology. It's always a pleasure to come out from behind the scenes here and share out on our department. And tonight, I wanted to start with really speaking to the people and the positions that round out our department. And as you can see on the screen there, we have 21 people in the department, including myself, and with a host of positions ranging from administrative assistant, help desk, to our system and network administrators, that data component piece, sending that and reporting that data to the state. Our technical support supervisor, solving those higher level problems, assisting those 7 billing technicians, and overseeing our 5 part-time interns, which we greatly appreciate. And I would also say we have some loyalty, if not longevity, also in our department, with well over half the department. They're over 10 years, and a good portion, at least 6 to 10 years of service. So it's a good cohesive group. Good culture, support each other, and I'm extremely fortunate to work with them each day. So speaking of what we do in support, I'm going to go through a couple different hardware categories, and the first being desktop computers. They play a significant role in the district, serving as the primary device for all teacher workstations, sitting on over 1,700 of them. You've seen a slight decline over the years as we've moved to that one-to-one environment and away from those traditional computer labs, but also have Windows-based laptops with over 700 of those, and a slight decline in those over the last couple of years as that remote work that was needed with COVID has diminished. You see a spike there back in the 16-17 year, and that predates Chromebooks, and we offered Windows laptops to students in the one-to-one program in its infancy. And we also support those PLTW programs with laptops, and it serves as a primary device for most administrators. Chromebooks is where probably the lion's share of our work is. With 580 estimated Chromebooks in our fleet. You can see that number has gone up significantly over the year and leveled out as we're finally completely one-to-one, all across all grades, and even staff have them. The larger number accounts for a good-sized loaner stash of Chromebooks too. They're small, robust devices which last 3 to 4 years in the hands of students. Once that time is up, we cherry-pick the best ones, and Google's extended the life of them so we can use those to help sustain us through the repair program. Sometimes when those repairs get backed up and we're running low on devices. So it's a good system, and it keeps us busy, as you'll see in the data here in a minute. 315 printers out in the district. We still encourage people to move to that digital environment, utilize the print shop here in the district for more affordable printing. And the classroom projections systems. Every conference room, small office space, that has a request in. We have over 600 projectors, over 50 flat panel televisions, and we cover every area necessary. 307 smart boards, primarily in the elementary setting. They still are an incredible value. These smart boards are robust, generally trouble-free once they're working correctly. 10-year lifespan, sometimes 12, and at a good affordable cost. We're not quite sold on this interactive flat panel that seems to be all the rage. They look good, they're flashy, but they're still twice as much, and the features are still evolving on a regular basis. We're not quite sold on them. I think they're going to be a viable solution in the future, though. This is also one where you see significant growth. 463 cameras in the district we supported, with currently adding 120 more in the schools of Blades, OES, Point, and Rogers. And by the fall of 2025, when the entire district is covered, we'll have over 800 cameras. And just to give you an idea of the scope of work, those 4 buildings this year will probably run between 2 to 3 miles of cabling through those buildings. So that's a pretty significant job for each year. I mentioned phones because there's a lot of them. They're heavily used every day, over 1,300 handsets. It's not just the phones, but it's also the back-end support, the phone controllers, the hardware, the operating systems, assigning voicemail boxes, numbers to staff. It's a good-sized undertaking. And wireless access points, about 760 of those across the district. That number hasn't changed, which I feel confident is a reflection that the campuses are covered. We encourage people to give us feedback if they feel otherwise. I do know there's been some requests to put some APs or access points facing outdoors for outdoor learning spaces. So we've been working with schools expanding that area as well. And so that kind of brings our total number of supported devices up over 22,000. That, of course, doesn't cover the thousands of computer monitors, dongles, wires, cords, and other things we fuss with. But when you add in all the technicians servicing those, that's over 3,000 per technician they're handling every year. And kind of breathe a sigh of relief this year as that number finally leveled off after the last few years, that would be due to that Chromebook growth that we saw since 2016. So our total completed help tickets, what are we doing in that workflow? We've logged over 13,000 events. And if you break down those events and look at them, we can kind of classify them in these areas of over 6,200 traditional building help desk work orders. And that would kind of be as what you saw back here in like 2016 and 17 or so, our technician going to a classroom, fixing a connection problem, a monitor problem, a printer problem, something of that nature. But now, over the last few years, we've added in different categories. Nearly 400 student help desk emails. That was in the thousands during COVID and the shutdown. 190 people have pulled up to our front door and required a swap of a Chromebook and a hardware swap. And over 5,000 Chromebooks have been transported to our repair center for service since September. And each one of those is going to require 5 to 10 minutes to diagnose and take a look at and figure out what's wrong with it. And it doesn't always mean it's shattered, broken, or anything. It could just be a connectivity issue or some minor issue, but they still all need to be looked at. And by comparison, this time last year, that number was around 2,800. And we attribute that to just the high use of these devices. We have a lot of applications, supported applications that are running on these Chromebooks. They're heavily used, more breakage, some carelessness, but just simply a lot of device when you have that many out in the field. So that's going to be around 13,000 of those tech-related help events through our department. And those Chromebooks and our users use a lot of data, incoming internet bandwidth. And we're at 4.4 terabytes on average per day of data, or 4,400 gigs of data per day. Unfortunately, last July, we upgraded. We actually doubled our internet capacity. And so I feel confident we can handle these high, heavy network traffic spikes over the next few years until our next contract is up with plenty of capacity. And so those online resources I mentioned earlier, I spoke to this at length last year, if you're sitting in this meeting. You remember me speaking to these applications that we purchase, and they provide great value, but they also provide back-end work and a lot of syncing of data back and forth to make them work. And for example, might be some HVAC systems, the door access controls like keypads, our point of sale systems in the cafeteria, and you see the list goes on, benchmark testing and health services, learning management, lots of data and syncing. And I want to thank you all because you heard my data and responded to it, and you recommended that we get some extra help. And since then, we've added a +1 to our department and eased that bottleneck. So I thank you for your support. Cybersecurity is first and foremost on our minds. You can't read the news without hearing of yet another breach in the news somewhere, and schools are soft targets. And so we've upgraded over the last year to 24/7, around the clock, threat assessment, endpoint monitoring. That means a third-party service is actually monitoring for alerts that comes in, because most attacks happen at night when no one's in the office. We're pushing out multi-factor authentication for all users by July. We contract with third parties, external third parties, for penetration tests to test our network security. And also this year, we're doing an internal network test to see if someone had gained access somehow, where could they move laterally within the network, and how high could they elevate their privileges to get control. So that'll be very telling, and we'll learn a lot from that as well. We have 3 different methods of data backup: on-site, off-site, and the cloud. We train our users through simulated email phishing campaigns, promote the security best practices and new teacher orientation, and we really promote that culture of everyone is going to be a cyber risk manager. It's not just on the shoulders of the IT department. And I wanted to give a shout out very quickly of that email phishing campaigns. We send those out through every 3 to 5 weeks. If you've been on the board, you probably have gotten one of them before. And when we adopted this service 2 or 3 years ago, we initially had about a 22% click rate in the district. 22% of our staff fell for it and clicked it, what could be a potentially malicious email. I'm very pleased to report that we've been averaging between 1.5 to 3%. An industry standard, you're doing good if you're around 5%. But this last one, just 25 people out of 1,348 inboxes clicked on it, and that's just phenomenal. And just hats off to our users who are starting to recognize this and truly adopt that cyber risk. So for the future, I continue to keep that sustainable workflow model, advocating for what we need in our workflow. And a big project this year is going to be transitioning to a new student information system. Tyler, who has been our student information provider for 20 some odd years, is getting out of the business. And so we've been forced to adopt a new partner, going with somebody called Infinite Campus. They're one of the biggest and what we feel is the best here in the nation to use. So that'll be a big project this year. And meeting that safety and security goals by our strategic plan with the cameras and working in conjunction with that team and constantly updating our district technology infrastructure. We have a robust refresh plan with the help of Marshall over there, always ensuring that funds are in place and our planning's in place to keep things fresh, and really adapting to that threat environment that we routinely are faced with the evolving bad actors. That's important to protect our student data, keep those incident and response plans up to date. As we found out last November when we had that critical hardware error, we could fall back on that plan. What do you do next? Who do you contact? Where? And that served us well. We recovered all that data that night and we're back up and running a day later. And through that all, we are mindful of involving those students. How can we involve students in our department? And that was most recently through a paid internship opportunities in our department where high school students can actually apply to work in open positions that we have. And it provides a valuable experience for them, and many of them have gone on then to their next level schooling or identify what career path they want to go in. So I hope this has provided you a snapshot of what the IT department has been up to over the last year and what we will continue to address.
All right, it's exhausting. And I do have one question. Out of that small percentage that clicked that spam,
Yeah.
were seven of them board members?
You know, I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
No, please answer that.
Anyway,
No comment. No comment.
Oh, Paul, I'm always looking forward to your presentations. You know, since I'm in IT, I'm always amazed at the amount of things that you work on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, as well as the fact that you're always future casting for what's coming in the pipeline. So I'm glad to see that, you know, we're definitely looking at our issues currently, our issues, you know, in the semi-future as well as further down the road. And I know with that many Chromebooks, you definitely have your hands full trying to keep all those going. And I know you had talked about that potential position you were looking at for sort of a person over all that.
Right.
With 13,000 Chromebooks, hopefully we can accommodate a position in the future for that.
Goal for the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next is the apprenticeship report. That would be John DeWally.
Good evening. Thank you once again for allowing me to come and highlight and celebrate some of the work we're doing around work-based learning and apprenticeships in our district. I hope I can do justice to all the work that our teachers and our counselors and our administrators are doing to help support these in our building. The work-based learning is really important as it helps ensure and align the idea that we want to make sure our students are college, career, and life ready when they leave our institutions. It also aligns to that notion of expanding opportunities for students and ensuring all of our students are equipped to be successful in their post-secondary pathways. And this work is supported by nationally normed indicators. It's supported by workforce development initiatives in our state. It is recognized through some of those workforce through career and technical education certificates. And it obviously is within our strategic plan. And this work these experiences are important because it does help lay that foundation for those post-secondary successes, as all of our students will eventually end up in the workforce. But it also helps us internally to rethink opportunities and leverage some existing resources to gain some of the benefits of those workforce and work-based learning opportunities. So I'd like to highlight some of our on-site and off-site opportunities and experiences. In particular, what is going on in our career and technical education programs in our high schools and on our campuses, but also some of our partnerships that exist with neighboring districts and neighboring institutions. On-site, so if you think about our workplace opportunities on-site, they traditionally align with those career and technical education classes, our business and marketing, our project Lead the Way, our family and consumer science courses, our industrial technology departments at each high school. And you'll see in our business and marketing courses the internships that are traditionally aligned with those of supervised internships where students are at school part of the day and they go out and partner with neighborhood partners and businesses, and they're working part of the day as part of their education plan. We have over 50 different local businesses that support our students within these programs, and those expand each year, and they deviate from year to year based on student interest and pathways and goals. Our family and consumer science, you often see those programs highlighted through catering events, especially district-wide, whether they're serving our community at 60 plus or the Hall of Fame ceremony, or most recently the Girls in STEM breakfast at Bernard Middle School. The industrial technology partners has a little bit of a dual purpose. We have what would you consider a dirty shop aspect, our metals, our woodworking, electrician type of work, home maintenance, but we also have some very technical programs such as robotics that align more to the computer science piece than what you would consider a traditional dirty shop or industrial technology department. Our departments within our buildings do a fantastic job of connecting with our alumni, but I would be forced to say that our business departments in marketing at each high school have done a phenomenal job with connecting with our Hall of Fame members, not only for our kids, but setting up for experiences for our teachers to go and visit sites and learn what is going on in the world of work. As an extension to those programs within our high schools, our students are involved in career and technical organizations. They do projects and engage in competitions, different activities related to those subject areas. There's a lot of community service type of activities that you'll see highlighted on the district website or through social media. And it's important that they compete in these regional, state, and national competitions, but also I want to note they do really well. So they're not just competing, they're award winners, they show a level of excellence, and that is an extension of what our teachers are doing with them day to day. Another important point in my view is they are not just participating, not just doing well, they're leaders. They're leaders of their particular state organizations. They serve on the boards of their organizations as student ambassadors. So they're actively involved in those particular pathways that will lead to their post-secondary success. In extension, we also will use MyPath in some of our independent study courses as leverage to allow kids to have some experiences that they may not gain from the CTSOs or through our traditional CTE programs. Those really are aligning with their passions or post-secondary goals and their interests as they lie. And we have leveraged some of our resources within the district. In particular, you heard Paul talk about internships he's offered our students for experience in IT. We've had students work in food service, also in the facilities department, and with transportation. Outside of our district, or outside of our sites with partnering districts, one of the more prominent partners is South Tech High School. We are the largest sender of students to South Tech High School. We have about 140 students currently enrolled in South Tech for half day. They are accessing 24 or so different programs that lead to various certifications. It is a highly competitive program. Students are judged against their peers across the county for some very select spots. Through their experiences there, they're learning work-based skills daily. They're connecting with different business partners outside of the building, engaging in internships that are often leading directly to workplace employment immediately following graduation or apprenticeships. The items highlighted here are ones that our seniors from our district did access last year upon graduation. Another great opportunity that we have for students in our district is St. Louis CAPS. St. Louis CAPS allows students to test drive careers in highly competitive fields. It occurs in professional settings, again, off of our campuses. It focuses on professional skills and developing those skills that are specific to those job careers. Key components of CAPS, as opposed to maybe tech, where tech they're earning some certifications, CAPS, there's a heavy focus on networking, on mentorship, in communication and project-based learning within that particular field. Key partners include Mercy Hospital South, SSM St. Clair, and the director would like me to communicate that they greatly appreciate our partnership with CAPS, in particular Dr. Clark from Mosaic and Dr. DeKemper, who have taken time out of their schedules to mentor our future educators in our teaching pathway careers. One of our newer programs is Access Point. We started as a pilot last year. It is a pre-apprenticeship program and allows students a pathway into the IT field. Within a year of graduation, the Access Point will guarantee students placement at entry-level jobs with some partner companies. Within these companies, they're guaranteed to earn $55,000 a year. These companies have to offer benefits, including medical and retirement, and they have to offer some type of tuition reimbursement so students can progress and move on and maybe attain a bachelor's degree, not immediately after they graduate, but further down the line. The goal is to help minimize the debt that would occur by those post-secondary bachelor's degrees. We do want to take a moment to celebrate some of our students that we had and recognize the impact of this particular program. Our students are the 3 students that accessed last year currently are in paid pre-apprenticeship programs with the 3 companies that are listed and on track to earn full-time employment. So we have a whole focus on our students and different experiences for them and how they can connect to the workforce, but we're also being very deliberate on how we can assist our educators to be able to connect students to the workforce. In partnership with Afton last year, I mentioned in this presentation last year, we were going to do a grant that focused on geospatial information systems. So this past summer, those 40 or so educators went to a variety of partners, learned about the different types of jobs connected to geospatial in St. Louis, had a great time, had fabulous visits, had fabulous feedback from both of our site visit partners as well as our educators. And there's a great desire to continue those type of activities as they were able to take some of the things that they learned and directly apply it to their particular classroom, regardless if they were English, math, social studies. They were able to find something that they learned and apply that to their teaching and connecting to our kids. And we're going to continue to look into doing that. Greg Rosick and I are investigating what that might look like in the future. Leveraging different opportunities in St. Louis area, whether that's surrounding biomedical or biotechnology focus, but doing a similar event where teachers would engage in those type of externship activities. We're also using those site-place visits in terms of professional development, visiting South Tech High School with our CTE programs. Our business departments are connecting with our alumni for Union Station tours and connections. And also we're looking at getting our counselors out to building training facilities so they can speak directly to what that opportunity will look like when students are leaving our sites. So moving forward, asking the question, how might we realign some of our resources to create unique opportunities for students? And these 5 little horribly graphic designed people that I added here, because I'm not a graphic designer, are there just to show that out of our Access Point students, they all are accessing some different resources for unique experiences for their post-secondary pathway. So they're taking some of our resources we're already offering, and they're leveraging those for an experience either their senior year, junior and senior year, to jumpstart them into success. Student number 5 is my favorite story that had gone from my path to Paul with an internship to an employee to being dual enrolled, and now with Access Point is included in one of those companies that was on a previous slide. But we're not also looking at reimagining, but we also want to continue establishing business partners, meeting with folks weekly, seeing how we can define pathways and really align instead of having maybe a hodgepodge of things. We want it to be laser focused, reviewing what state resources are available. And we have some ongoing emerging conversations, in particular with the manufacturing group, and developing a pilot program for internships that would be locally, connecting with our laborers union and also our carpenters union. Again, thank you for supporting these type of opportunities. I would encourage you to visit some of our on-site experiences so you can see the great works that our kids are doing, but also our teachers and how they're supporting them. And I think, seeing is believing, and, we just offer some wonderful opportunities here in our district. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Very impressive. Thank you so much. Anybody have anything?
I just wanted to say that I've had the pleasure of working with with some of your people, and the first time I ever met the CAP students was a couple years ago, and I thought they were college students when I met them. They were so professional, and I was really surprised that they were OHS students that I was talking to about GIS. So I ever since then, I've just thought it was an amazing opportunity for kids to get into. So I appreciate it.
It's a great opportunity. We have some amazing students, those in CAPS and those in all of our choice programs, and those who are accessing all of the options that are available within our brick and mortar buildings.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are you early college report also?
I am.
All right.
So our Early College Academy is a concurrent enrollment opportunity for students in which they can earn a high school diploma, at the same time an associate's art degree through St. Louis Community College. It is part of that ongoing conversation about expanding opportunities for students. Dr. Gaines had laid the groundwork and forwarded the concept a number of years ago that eventually evolved into what became our Early College Academy. And part of it was, yes, expand some opportunities for kids, but the other part is there's programs like this happening all over our country. Why do our kids not have access to the same type of opportunities? So we look to research those, find what's applicable and transferable, and bring those to us to expand those opportunities. Our program is housed at the St. Louis Community College South Campus. Our district is supporting the costs associated with that experience, including tuition and books and fees and so forth. It does make us a little bit unique in terms of that type of support, because we are looking to remove barriers of access and navigate some obstacles that happen to occur. So that was intentional in terms of allowing students who may not have access otherwise, the access to this type of opportunity. Even though we're home-based at the St. Louis Community College, we have access to all campuses. We have access to the virtual classes that they offer. Our students who are enrolled as early college students, they are college students for all due purposes. Our eligibility requirements align with the higher ed requirements for dual enrollment. Quite honestly, we've removed some of those that were district-driven, such as you had to be enrolled in 9th and 10th grade to be eligible. It was an artificial barrier that limited access. So we've removed that barrier. We have not had many kids access it through that, but the one or two that did, it was a valuable decision for their experience. So looking at the breakdown of where we are currently and kind of where we started with 10 students overall, and we have kind of climbed, and it looks like, whether it's COVID or whether maybe this is the ceiling in terms of the program, is it less than 20? The trend will tell, but we currently are at 16 students, excuse me, with 10 from Oakville and 6 from Mehlville. That has been consistent, where Oakville has had a little bit more of a higher enrollment than Mehlville, and some of that may be to do with access. It is also really, really difficult for students to want to leave Mehlville and Oakville High School. I mean, we have about 10% of students that are leaving campus for CAPS and for a variety of choice programs. We also have about 10% of students staying on campus, accessing dual credit and accessing AP and dual credit classes as well. Some celebrations. Overall, we have had 13 students thus far earn their associate's degree. We're projecting another 8 at the end of this school year for a total of 21. And then all of our juniors currently in the cohort are on track to earn that associate's as well. And that's wonderful for those 13. For many of them, it's a generational impact where they're 2 years ahead of college. That financial burden is going to be quite a bit less as they move on to their post-secondary opportunities. Some are in university. Some have chosen, as you saw in the previous presentation, to access the Access Point program and are working, and then will go back to school later on once their tuition reimbursement kicks in with their companies. But another strong indicator is the power of 15. If a student earns 15 college credit hours while they're in high school, the statistical chances of them persisting to the next degree increases if they've earned that 15 prior to entering post-secondary institutions. So we've had 25 of our overall 36 earn that. We do have some additional early college opportunities that are underneath that early college umbrella. The first is a pilot program that we looked at last year called Make It Count. It was a second semester senior experience where students would choose to be dual enrolled off-site and attend St. Louis Community College instead of attending Mehlville or Oakville High School their senior year. You can see last year we had 4 students access that opportunity. We currently have 15. This is the program I would anticipate to be more desirable for a lot of our students, partially because of not wanting to miss out on the great experiences currently offered, and then also wanting to make sure we have a very fulfilled senior year experience available to them. Access Point, again, I spoke before about Access Point. We started with 2 students. This is a little bit wrong, I apologize for the data. There should be 3 from last year as a pilot, and we currently have 2. Some of the numbers in terms of Access Point are a little bit skewed because, again, in that previous presentation, we had students in early college and Access Point at the same time. So didn't want those numbers to really overlap there. So moving forward, we had projected when the concept had been presented, moving up incrementally, by 10 and 5 or so. What the trend is telling us is that maybe we are at a ceiling in terms of early college, but there's great interest in some of these other programs. So we are able to honor some of those requests this year for Make It Count by shifting some resources that were available to expand a pilot program under Make It Count. So the students that we didn't have a full cohort of early college, we shifted some of those resources to Make It Count to kind of see and test the waters and see what that interest would look like so we could plan and budget for the future. We've, promotion of opportunity is always a challenge. Identifying the right students for the right program at the right time. Communications continues to work on promotional materials. We are providing choice program sessions to our teachers so they're knowledgeable about the various offerings that the district provides. We had our choice programs night last week. Again, always the annual board presentation as an opportunity to share not with you all, but the community as well. And there will be an upcoming early college parent and student information night. And, everything's not perfect. We recognize that. There's some opportunities for improvement, dedicated support for Make It Count and Access Point. I'm not requesting or suggesting we add staffing to support this, but having a dedicated budget to where our schools know they have X amount of allocated spots for these programs would go a long way to promoting those and identifying students that would be the right fit for those. Textbooks management is it's the challenge every semester for me as I keep a library of all of our existing textbooks to ensure that we're maximizing our resources and not continually buying new versions. So reaching out and getting the kids newly enrolled the right books, and that way we can limit what we're spending on text. Again, identifying and addressing obstacles as they occur, that's ongoing, and we want to continue to make sure we're promoting these opportunities to their fullest. Expanding access to early college is another future-focused idea, looking at specializations and certifications that exist within the associate's degree footprint without adding anything, without removing anything, looking at a full middle college option, so not just Make It Count, but an entire senior year experience, and seeing what we can do with dual credit. Can we align those a little bit better to make them more focused, to make a predictable or desirable outcome? Again, we're unique in a sense. The board and the community continue to support these type of opportunities, paired with your vision and empathy and action with our central office team. We're allowed a lot of autonomy in exploring and suggesting and recommending different opportunities that will not only help students initially and right away, but perhaps generationally for some others. So thank you.
All right, fantastic. You already know what I think of your program. I think it's amazing. We all do. You guys are lucky that have little ones that are still going to get to take advantage.
And
Thank you.
they'll have things even more smoothed out by the time mine get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing the opportunities that we have.
Okay, thank you. Policy revisions. I'm thinking Dr. Smith, or is it Dr. Gaines?
Oh, it's anybody.
All right.
Policy committee had pushed these two forward after review and some changes related that came from MSBA. None of these were our requested changes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Any questions that have been asked are on e-boards from our prior questions before the meeting, just so the community knows that. If I could please get a motion to approve the policy revisions as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Strategic plan update. Dr. Gaines.
All right. So as we've talked before, we usually do talk about this one about twice a year. I think we'll be hitting it again in June. You know, we always talk about this great big grid that we kind of use to help plan stuff and think well out into the future. But really, it's just a function of trying to put together some plans and ideas, execute where we're able to, and adjust where we need to. So as we think about the strategic planning process that really leads to the strategic plan itself, our cycle is here, which is part of that big grid. You can see that we're in year 2, and you know, our plan has been that in year 4 is when we start engaging the community and stakeholders as we develop the next iteration of the strategic plan. So there's also a lot of stuff that's kind of outside that strategic plan that, you know, we're kind of playing with too, and kind of big ideas or things that we have to be thinking about. So from the board's perspective, obviously the superintendent search is a big part of that. You just heard from Dr. DeWally about all of these partnerships that we have, including the early college partnership that we have with St. Louis Community College. We've actually spent a lot of time this fall, and just recently the South County school districts met with leadership from the community college on how we can more utilize the facility here that sits in our district, and how we may be able to leverage that a little bit stronger for students in South County and perhaps northern Jefferson County if they just want to come across the river. We also have all the work around the Prop S projects. We know we've got the upcoming renovation of 2900. We've got Prop E on the ballot. We also, you know, had made a commitment to 2 years of at-home as a MOCAP provider to see if we could get that up and running, and, you know, whether that continues, and of course, the ESSER-funded positions and activities and their continuation. So in previous conversations, you know, our rough plan has been that we would be going to the voters pretty much every year over the next 4 years for a myriad of reasons. One, the first one being to address competitive wages. Next, around the ESSER-funded positions activities. Then a potential bond issue somewhere around that 14 million mark in 2025. And then the extension of Prop A, which funds roof and HVAC work in 26. But one of the things that we know is that every time that we go to the ballot, really it's the community that decides what kind of school they want and what our future will be. So kind of along that path, which each of those pieces is a recalculation of where we think our future can be after each of those ballot measures. So that's kind of, where we're at on the big planning grid right now, just in terms of big concepts.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Moving on to MSIP 6.
So, MSIP, what is it? Well, it's Missouri's accountability system for schools, school districts. And it's been around for 30 years. And it's gone through different iterations, right? And what those reviews have looked like in each of those iterations have been very different. However, fourth cycle and then the fifth and sixth iterations have been more performance driven or test based. And in each of those cycles, if you will, the bar has been raised. So we reach a point after 5 years and the state changes it all and say, now you got to chase this target. And then 5 years later, they say, now you have to chase this target. So we have a new target with MSIP 6. This year is actually the pilot year kind of for MSIP 6, and then next school year will be the first real year, I guess you could say, with classifications under MSIP 6. COVID has delayed some of this. Stuff at the state has kind of all impacted that. So if you go back, MSIP 5, typically it was a 5-year cycle, but MSIP 5 has been around a long time. So if we look at the framework of MSIP 6, and over the last several cycles, we've had this notion of points that you can earn, and there are complicated formulas in terms of how you earn the points and how it's calculated and how you earn all of those points. But in this iteration of MSIP, 70% of the available points are from the performance standards, which include the MAP test, graduation rate, our follow-up graduate follow-up studies, and then all of these measures around Success Ready, which include ACT, SAT, the Accuplacer, the ASVAB, the work keys, a lot of the things that Dr. Diwali had mentioned. The new piece in this, in the sixth cycle of MSIP is all this continuous improvement stuff, which is actually kind of interesting because that's what MSIP used to largely be built on, was this kind of stuff back in its original days. So we've kind of come full circle to some point. So when we look at the points and we just think about the performance standards and the two big pieces of status and growth, and status is just where you are relative to the bar, and growth is how well your students are growing in their academics year after year based on a student score in third grade, and based on a student score in third grade, then DESE will predict where they think they should score in fourth grade. And then they take a test in fourth grade, and then DESE will predict where they think they should be in fifth grade. So it's measuring against those growth, that anticipated growth. So when we look at how the 32 points for all students and the 16 points for the student groups is determined, it's mostly built around ELA and math, where you get those points and kind of how that comes from. Now, the student group piece, if we go back 20 years to No Child Left Behind and the notion of adequate yearly progress and having to look at all of these little disaggregated groups, now student groups is all lumped into one. And so there are a number of ways that a student can be designated to be in that student group, we'll say bucket, if you will. One is if they're identified as a low-income students. Historically, what we've talked about is students who are on free and reduced lunch. That nomenclature is gone. Now it's low-income students. And the definition of low-income students now are those students who are direct certified for the National School Lunch Program. So in order to be direct certified for the school lunch program, means your family is receiving SNAP benefits. So that group then overall will be a smaller count of students. Students with disabilities, that's long been there as kind of a disaggregated group, so as English language learners. And now they've added what they're saying is the state's major racial and ethnic student groups, which essentially are students who are Black or Hispanic. So if you look at the example here where, we've got 6 students, if they have an X in any of the columns with a red arrow, then that student then is in the student group and is counted once. So if you look at student B, they hit 2 categories. So they're only in the student group once. And then, so we got 3 kids out of, in this example, who would be in that kind of mix. Now, for status, when we look at where we are, do we hit the target? Are we on track? Are we approaching, or are we at the floor? Then there's point totals that come about for each of those. All right. So the top is for all students, and then the bottom is for the student groups. So what happens is for each student who takes the MAP test, and for each subject area, each student gets calculated what's called a performance index. Now, here is a change from prior. Before, if you were below basic, you just got 1. If you were basic, you got 3, and if you were proficient, 4, and advanced, 5. But because there are score ranges within each of those levels, now the bottom 3 levels, a student can have a score other than just an integer, right? So before, you could have a student who scored at the bottom of basic, or like basic is a range. You could score at the bottom of the range and you could score at the top of the range, and districts would still get a 3 for that student. Now, students at the top of that range are going to get a higher MPI. So then you average all of that together after, if you think about a grade level, so roughly 730 kids or so in a grade level. We're going to average those scores, multiply them by 100 to get the overall MPI. And then based on where that is, then you're defined in whether the district and then narrowed down to the building, in each content area, are they at the floor, are they approaching, on track, or target, which then determines how many points in each of those that you get. So if you look to be on target and you look at the math of that and you go, okay, so the average has to be 4 to get 400. That means to be at target, the average student score has to be 4, which is proficient. How is proficient defined? Well, a lot of people associate proficient with grade level. Proficient exceeds grade level. So the target is relatively high. So that's on the status piece, right? It's just where everybody is compared to this top score of advanced, which translates to a 5, right? So growth. Growth is horribly complicated in how it's calculated. I kind of sort of explained it, but if you think about that third grader and that prediction on where they will score in fifth or fourth grade, if they're significantly above that growth, that's good. That's exceeding. If they're within the range of where the growth was expected, then you're on track. If you're below that, you're at the floor, right? So MSIP 6 will change that completely, kind of. It's sort of similar, but how it gets done for accreditation is significantly different. So if we look at our 2019 data, we were exceeding growth for ELA every student, math every student, and math the student groups. And we were on track for ELA within the student groups, right? So under that and under MSIP 5, we got all of the growth points for ELA all of the growth points for math all of the growth points for math student groups, and 2 out of 3 for ELA student groups. So as a district, we got 29 out of 30 points, or 97% of the growth points available is what we had earned. So for MSIP 6, as I said, it's completely different. It's this fun and interesting formula that you get to calculate. And so if we look at the 18-19 data and we look at growth scores, those growth scores are broken into those 3 categories. And that's kind of how the districts across the state would line up relative to their growth. And what happened in MSIP 5 was, if you're in that top category, you got all the points. If you're in that middle category, you got all the points for that middle category. And if you were at the bottom, you got nothing. All right? So in the new thing, what's going to happen is, for all of the districts who are in that above average or exceeding range, they're going to be ranked. And so not everybody's going to get all the points now. If you're at the bottom of the range, you're going to get less points than those that are at the top of the range. Right? So how that breaks out is roughly, in terms of all students, roughly a third are below average growth, or roughly 40 to 50% are average growth, and then somewhere around 20% on the above average growth. So it really impacts where districts are going to be. So what this illustrates is, on the bottom is what percentage of points districts earned under MSIP 5. And on the left is what percentage of points they will earn under MSIP 6. So you can see, for those in the bottom left quadrant, MSIP 6 is good for them. But if you're in the top right quadrant, it's not so good. And if you were performing very well on growth, it's really not so good. Right? So another way to look at this is kind of a distribution of the districts and what the difference in points is. And you can't see it, and I don't even know if the pointer will kind of see, but you can see that around the 0 mark, there's a number there. So it's about a quarter of the districts in the state, their growth scores will go down. just because we've changed the rules, right? And then about 75% will go up. So if you were making good growth before, it's not all that great for you. And there's some examples of kind of how different districts could be treated. You know, these are all made up districts. So if you look at how we get treated using the 18-19 data under MSIP 5 versus MSIP 6, and I mentioned before we were earning 97% of the points. Well, they moved the bar, and with the exact same data, now we'll earn 76% of those points. Same data, all that happened was the target changed. State changed the target, impacts some, worse than others. So if I go back to that graph that I showed earlier, we are one of those 5 to 7 districts who are impacted almost the worst, right? So there's like 8 to 10 of us that really get hit hard by this new system. Yeah, we're one of those, right? We're one of the 8 to 10 getting the worst hit from this new system using the exact same data, right? So that's all of the status and growth stuff. Then we go to success ready measures, which I talked about, college and career ready assessments. So those are all the different tests that our kids take. Most of our juniors will take the ACT, but not all. Some of our South Tech kids will take the ACT, others will take the work keys. Some of our community college kids will just take the AccuPlacer. And then all of our kids who are going in the military will have to take the ASVAB. Then there's advanced coursework, which are all of, you know, whether it's AP or IB where that's available, dual credit, dual enrollment, early college programs, kind of all of that counts into that. Graduation rate, there's actually a calculation on a 4, 5, 6, and 7-year graduation rate to earn those points. And then graduate follow-up. What we have to do within 6 months of graduation is follow up on all of the students. And if they fall into any of these categories, then they're kind of a positive on the count, if you will. So all of that accounts for 70% of the points available under this cycle of MSIP. Then we move to continuous improvement. So there are some success ready measures here too. There's school entry readiness, which is really kindergarten assessment. Now, this isn't how kids score on a kindergarten assessment, right? We're not being judged on kids we've never touched before or hadn't had in our classrooms. What we're being judged on is, did we give the kids a readiness assessment when they came into kindergarten? That's it. Either you did or you didn't. That's it. Then attendance, which attendance has been around for a while. ICAP completion is kind of a little bit of newer thing for state accreditation, but it's been around with the high schools for a while. So it's an individual career and academic plan for students that they'll have through high school. And again, whether or not a student has one or not. Also then there's required documentation. We have to, the board hears our auditors every year. There's a deadline for all of that to happen. All of that gets submitted to DESE, the annual secretary of the board report. That has to be submitted by a certain date. And then we have core data submissions through the MOSIS system that we do to the state every other month. And it's whether or not we get these things done on time. Is kind of how that works. So, and then there's just the notion of improvement planning overall, which is kind of 3 things around strategic plan, a self-reflection relative to the strategic plan and the planning process, and then the climate and culture survey, which we do that with Panorama and other things. Now, under this new system, there will also have the ability for districts to apply to be recognized for exemplary status in the 6 broad MSIP areas. And you can see those here, and the criteria for each of those is a little bit different. So going back to where you can earn points, really, when we look at this, it's hard to see here. We've kind of bolded some of these items. Really, the testing items are the challenge, and actually kind of the required documentation can be a challenge because of the core data deadlines and the volume of data that gets reported to the state. You know, the old joke was every other month we report 62 pieces of information about every kid. So it's a lot. But in October, what we report is every employee or every certified employee, how much money they make, every class that they teach, and who is in those classes. So that's pretty cumbersome to be able to get that. And then in June, we have to report attendance by every kid. So the October and June core data pieces can be a big challenge. I think those two are the ones that will present the most challenge for districts to be able to get that stuff done. Kind of in that. So as we think about all of this, and there's all of these points available in the new system, there will be 4 levels of accreditation, and you can see those here. So it's been a while since the bar has moved for schools in terms of the accreditation system, and it's moving again. And as you know, one of my colleagues from a district who sometimes struggles is every time a new system comes out, we start off in the middle of the pack and we slowly work our way up and we do better and better. And by the time we're feeling good about ourselves, they change it again and we're back to the middle of the pack. And then we work our way up again. So it's cyclical in more ways than just calling it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and ever how far it goes.
Okay. Anybody have anything? Any questions?
Can I ask a question? When you mentioned that we were one of those like 6 school districts or whatever the number was that are kind of getting hit the worst with it, is there some specific causes or cause that you see that is the reason behind that?
Well, it's all the same. Everybody that's getting hit is getting hit for the same reason. We're in the top bit,
Yeah.
but we're in the bottom half of the top bit.
And because the measurements changed,
Yep. Yep.
it's not our performance,
So
it's the measurements.
if you would look here, we're kind of, if you go all the way to the right,
Yeah.
all right, we're in that 97% of the points, so we're in that next grouping, and you can see that entire grouping fares worse, right? So if you're below that line, so you go from like 85% to 100% on the bottom, and you look at where all those dots are, everybody but the top one gets treated worse.
Right.
So under the old system, there's all of these districts that were earning 100% of the points. And there's all these districts that are earning 0 growth points. And under the new system, one district gets 100. That's it. and only one gets 0. Everybody else is ranked, and then your points are based on where you rank in that. This is on growth, right?
Yeah.
This is not something that we can calculate, right? DESE calculates whether students meet their growth targets or not us. Because based on a kid's test in 3rd grade, those growth targets get set for that student.
Can I ask one more, can I ask one more question? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You mentioned proficient means exceeds grade level. Why is that? Why do they do that? Why do they call it
Everybody
proficient?
thinks, right, proficient in advanced, so these kids are performing at grade level or above. No, proficient is like within the basic range. That's
Yeah.
where grade level is.
Yeah.
It's always been that way for the MAP test. Just everybody thinks it's proficient. It's never been proficient. So for a kid to score proficient, they're above grade level.
Huh.
So when you say that they're targeting growth based on 3rd grade, how long do those tests last?
What do you mean by how long?
So like they're testing growth against 3rd grade metrics, right?
So they'll take a test in 3rd grade, right? So they take the 3rd grade math test. And, you know, if a kid scores at this level, and they're going to say, okay, we predict that the kid should score at this level in 4th grade. Once they take the 4th grade, they'll issue a new prediction for 5th grade. So what happens is they can predict over time, but that range of prediction just widens in those bands. So those bands get recalculated every time a new test is done. Every year, every grade level, if you will. Right? And basically this only applies up through 7th grade.
What was the amount of, the percentage of total points that we received last year? And is the projected reduction in percentage of points, will that change our status from an accreditation standpoint?
So we've not seen the full APRs yet. That's what the whole accreditation, it's an annual performance report. We've not seen any full APRs under MSIP 6 yet. And we've kind of seen drafts of what they're going to look like, but we've not seen them at the district level. So we don't know what points might be looking like for MSIP 6. And the other thing is everything that I've shown is with 18-19 data. So the APRs, we just learned today, this afternoon, the APRs don't go public for last year's test scores until March 7th.
So we don't have the total amount of points that we received from MSEP 6, excuse me, MSEP 5 for the 21-22 school year yet?
It was
Well,
87%.
So COVID
Yeah.
caused a whole bunch of stuff where APRs were not provided
Okay.
because there were such variance in the data. So the MAP tests weren't given in the spring of 20, right? So there's
Gotcha.
just no data there. So everything that we've been provided has been pretty much informational. So what we get in March will be the most up-to-date data we have against the new targets.
Okay.
That are 17, 18, so the fall of 18 APR was the highest it'd ever been.
But I guess what I'm saying is that do you feel like what you're seeing here, the reduction in points that we might realize because of they changed the growth formula, do you think that's going to change our status in accreditation?
No, we'll still be accredited.
We'll still be accredited. So we'll still receive between 70 and 94.9% of points. Okay.
Yeah, just if you kind of break it down by piece, I mean, we should get all the success rated graduation rate, and graduate follow-up, and we should get all the continuous improvement stuff. And then we're not going to get nothing, any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the reporting, and specifically October and June being the most challenging, who does this reporting? Or, I mean, is it a culmination?
It's, well, the upload is just like one person, but so a lot of that information, pretty much most of it now just gets uploaded from our student information system and our financial software. However, HR puts all the financial stuff in terms of employees, number of years of service, social security numbers, that's linked to all their certifications, all of that stuff. And then our data department does all of the student information side. So what happens is all of that gets uploaded, and then you start seeing warnings and errors that don't make sense to the DESE system. So then you have to go in there and fix those. So there's the second piece is all the hand stuff that kind of has to get done. So if you think about a lot of the programs, especially that Dr. Diwali talked about, before we ever started to do those, we met with our state supervisor and pretty much said, these are the things that we want to do. These are either the statute or the regulation under which we think that we can do them. Help us figure out how to code them in your system so it doesn't throw all of these red flags. So it's the one-off programs that can be a challenge to fix. And 20 years ago, you entered all of that by hand.
Wow.
But you provided less information back then too.
Yeah.
We didn't provide every class that Eric and Jenna were in. We just said, okay, Dr. Pike is teaching, American history, and she's got 21 kids in there.
Yeah.
And these are their races. So it's evolved over time. But it's so important that we have every kid's information right in the student information system and every employee's information right in our financial software.
Thank you.
So if we're going to change from Tyler to Infinite Campus, it means the next data upload might be a little bit interesting.
The first data upload could be interesting. However, we're not making the change to Infinite Campus until July 1 of 24. And Infinite Campus is a major player in Missouri. So they're pretty seamless with the state system. And I don't know if I want to say that Infinite Campus bought Tyler, but that's not really, I don't think, the right nomenclature. Partnership. A partnership where Tyler goes away. So what's been happening on the technology side is, Paul can correct me, My understanding is they've already started building the piece that makes our Tyler and our future Infinite Campus talk. So that we have as seamless a data migration as possible into Infinite Campus.
You said that's July 24 is when we're going to just rely on Infinite Campus?
Yep. Tyler goes away July 1, 2024.
So for 23-24, they're going to run in parallel? Sort of?
Sort of. Yeah.
Well, it's good that they're a major player, so it should be hopefully seamless.
They won't do, they'll start doing some, not running simultaneously, but my guess is during the spring of 24 and probably even in maybe into this fall, they'll start updating Infinite Campus, but they'll have to wait till the school year's out. We have everything. The school year, the 23-24 school year is complete before they'll run that last data migration into Infinite.
So it sounds like June 24 is going to be the month when everything sort of tries to drop into place.
Well, that whole spring will be
but
interesting.
if everybody's done at the end of May, then that month of June, the data shouldn't change. So hopefully that's the time we find out when the surprises happen, if any.
And the two systems work very differently, so there will be a lot of employee training.
There usually are different when this kind of thing happens.
All right. Next up is legislation and advocacy. Is that you?
I just have some notes I just have to bring up. Well, for starters, since this is, we started the legislative session back in early January, that's when things get interesting, and things get busy. So as of yesterday, or actually late last night, early this morning, there's 1,024 bills in the House that are going around and doing their things, moving towards the end game. And there's 53 House resolutions that are in play. The Advocacy Committee right now is tracking 242 of those bills for some relevance to us, and 33 of the House resolutions as well. On the Senate side, there's 587 bills in progress. We're tracking 148 of them, and 41 resolutions, and we're tracking 26 of them. Most of the resolutions, though, really deal with taxes and election stuff. That's stuff we're tracking sort of just because it affects us in one way or the other. But most of the other bills, it's the usual mix of curriculum changes, changes for property tax, changes for taxes, expanding ESA, which obviously started a couple of years ago. But the big one seems to be this year, seems to be open enrollment. When we were at the MSBA conference, I'm the MSBA delegate, and we spent 45 minutes and 11 different votes trying to decide what the MSBA policy on open enrollment was, because it's something that's coming this year. How it comes is a good question, but it's going to affect all of us. So there's numerous bills going on right now dealing with open enrollment. There's Senate Bill 5 that's going through committee. There's 253 and 559 in the House. And basically what open enrollment allows is you have the right to take your student and enroll them in the school of your choice, and your tax dollars flow through that. The problem is transportation isn't a piece of it, so if you're going through and wanting to move your student somewhere else, you're responsible for dealing with the transportation needs of getting your student where you want them to go. And if they have special needs, such as an IEP or special services that here would be provided with special school district, that may not be something that's available for you when you move. So it brings a lot of headache, it brings a lot of concern, and the big thing is it sort of starts the progression where you can have smaller schools start going through and getting even smaller because parents want to move their students to another school that gives them better options. It leads to consolidation, and it also starts a cycle where schools can start trying to attract students because that tax dollars will follow them. So it's something that's going to be a headache for all of us. So one of the things that came up is making a resolution for a position that we would take against open enrollment. Get that up so we can discuss it quickly. It's a resolution that says the Mehlville School District Board of Education resolution opposing legislation regarding open enrollment. Whereas the Board of Education has resolved to focus resident taxpayer resources on the education of students who reside in the district, whereas no credible research shows that open enrollment improves student achievement, and whereas past legislation has been discriminatory against students with special needs, whereas open enrollment will result in a significant adverse financial impact on public schools, now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Mehlville School District hereby resolves to oppose any legislation providing for open enrollment in Missouri public schools of non-resident students.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, can I please get a motion to approve the open enrollment resolution as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for all your work, Jeff. Jeff tracks all that for us, and he obviously does a lot of work on that.
Thank you.
And of course, the fun is that both the House and the Senate have their completely different systems and how they put their data up. One is easier to do some things in, and the other one is not. So it ends up being a lot of information that gets just manually done. Plus, actually, last week we had our first meeting of the expanded advocacy committee, and Jean was present, as was I, as well as some of the representatives that we've recruited into doing this. And it was a very productive, very informed meeting with a lot of great thought and great conversation that happened. And it basically turned into a discussion of trying to get people involved with finding out what our legislature is doing, because if they don't know, they're not going to necessarily know what's coming, and the process is anything but easy to understand. So I think the gist of it is we're trying to make the information as easily understandable to the populace as we can, and also make it something that they can find out how to advocate for themselves, their students, and get involved in trying to find out what our state legislature is going to be doing over the course of the legislative session.
All right.
And I would just like to say one thing, that I hope that more and more individuals in our community become educated on these issues that could directly affect our kids. I mean, we have to start thinking about it in the lowest denominator, which is our children. When they make these decisions in Jeff City about what they're going to do with the school districts here and there, that's all fine and dandy, but then you got to look all the way down to the end of that road and see how it's going to affect your kids. And I hope that more and more people in our community will pick up on this and get involved. We need your help.
All right, thank you. Next is student achievement, scope. Scott McMullen.
Good evening, everyone. I want to take a time to just give an acknowledgement. Most of my staff's not here, but I just want to say that I have the opportunity to work with some of the most amazing teachers and families, and so I'm excited to be able to share some of the accomplishments and some of the things that we've done in our building to improve student achievement. So our educational philosophy is providing an individualized learning experience and cultivate a safe and positive learning environment. That's been the key to our success. Many of our students experience a great deal of trauma, more trauma and adversity than the average person. So being able to provide a positive learning environment is critical to their success and well-being. Our enrollment history over the past several years has trended upward. When I first took over SCOPE, or when I first arrived, the average student enrollment, or the number of students that we served, were around 200 my first 4 years. Last year, we served over 250, and this year, at the halfway point, or the end of the first semester, we served just around 180. So even though the fourth data point on my grid shows that the numbers are lower, that's at the halfway point. The data for 2019 through 2022 were information at the end of the year. And usually I give my presentation at the end of the year, so this is the first time I've done it so early in the school year. So our numbers are trending upward. So we're excited that we're able to provide as much service as possible for our kids that really need the extra help. We really have 3 enrollment categories. Our Missouri Option Program, that usually services around 75 to 80% of our students. Instead of referring to our kids as long-term suspended, our staff collectively agreed that we would rather that be termed as alternative placement. That way it's not as stigmatizing. So around 27% of those students have been long-term suspended. And then we have 2 students currently who are dual enrolled. So with this data, we realize that most of our students don't go to college. So one of our areas of focus next year is really to expose them to careers and really hitting the career readiness pathway for our kids. One of the biggest keys to our success has been managing student discipline. In 2014, 2017, those 3 years, we had an average each year of 360 referrals. So during that time period, that 3-year time period, there was almost 1,200 discipline issues that we had to address. And then the next snapshot, the next 3-year snapshot from 2017 to 2020, we averaged around 140. So during that 3-year period, we had around close to 450 referrals. The past 3 years, ironically, with COVID, we anticipated having more discipline issues, but it's been the opposite, actually. The past 3 years, we have only had an average of 21 discipline referrals, so we've only had 63 total over that 3-year time period. And I just think that my staff modeling positive interactions with students and with each other, modeling de-escalation, and then this year intentionally teaching self-regulation skills with Why Try. And there's another behavior intervention model that we use, moral recognition training. So those 2 interventions have really helped our students identify triggers to their behaviors and positive, healthy responses so they're not in trouble and they can stay engaged in school. One of our biggest programs is Missouri Option. It's for students who are credit deficient. They have to be 17 years or older. They have to be behind in credits. And they also have to be able to score in 11th grade in the areas of reading, comprehension, and math. Some other prerequisites are community service of 10 hours a week, the Constitution test, they need to take all the EOCs, and then some type of post-graduation or postgraduate assessment. Missouri Option is more than just taking the HiSET exam. In addition to that, they do have to be employed 30 hours a week. They have to be considered full-time students. So that 30 hours a week could be going to a community college for 15 hours, working 15 hours a week, doing volunteer work 30 hours a week. If they're involved in a career readiness program that's full-time, that would also count. They will be assessed in the areas of math, science, social studies, reading comprehension, and written expression. Our success rates for the HiSET, which is the end exam for Missouri Option, has trended upward. My first 4 years, the average success rate was 90%, which is really good because most of the students that are referred to my program, they have no chance of graduating. So just the fact that the first 4 years we had a 90% graduation rate is really impressive, and it's just a testament to the work of our students, our staff, and the support of their families as well. The last 2 years, in spite of COVID, our numbers have increased. So we have had a 93% success rate. So hopefully we can continue to build on that or maintain that at least. When we talk about addressing our student behaviors and teaching self-regulation or self-management, our SEL data through Panorama has been really critical. One of the things that we do is we use our Panorama data to kind of drive what skills we're going to focus when we're doing Why Try or if we're doing moral recognition training. Our goal is to take the SEL Panorama survey, and 75% of our students score completely possible to change or quite possible to change their behaviors. As you can tell, our fall data, we used that, we looked at it as a team, and we noticed that self-management was the area that one of the areas that we struggled the most on. We also realized that self-management also controls or encompasses all the other Panorama skills as well, so that was our focus. with Panorama, we had decided, how can we, manage our discipline and teach those social skills when the survey is given twice a year. So we worked with Student Services and we created our own survey based on the same questions from the Panorama survey. And so our goal the first semester was to give that survey every month because we have students that transition out of our programs. Whether they're long-term suspended or in Missouri option, the average student's tenure in our programs are usually 2 months. So it's hard to capture their follow-up information. So we decided to do it once a month. And this semester, because our population is so transient, we're going to do that survey every 2 months. I'm sorry, every 2 weeks, sorry. As you can tell, in the graph, it shows how we scored self-management-wise on the Panorama compared to Mehlville, the school district as a whole. The gray box shows that our fall scores, the greenish box in October, and then November. As you can tell, the questions on the bottom portion of the survey talk about what types of questions the students were asked: prepared, follow directions, self-starter. And so, as you can tell, our goal of 75% was not met in any of those categories before we implemented the Y Tribe behavior intervention. But when we gave the survey again in October, not only did we meet our 75% goal, but our district averages were, our school averages were higher than the district average. And as you can see, as you go across the board, it increases significantly. The only drop off was in November was when it was the resist distractions and then polite to adults. And it's really interesting because in my building I have an open door policy. And one of the biggest things our students talked about was that during the holidays, that's the most difficult time. It's not an exciting time of year for them because they are having to juggle whether their families will buy groceries, pay bills, or get Christmas presents. Some of them are first-time workers, and so with them having a job and income, they expressed concerns because they were expected to buy gifts for adults. So all those things factored in why some of our scores in November were a little bit lower than October. But overall, students have really strived and improved a great deal. That's pretty much a summation of what we've done in our building. Just a collaborative approach, our small classroom environment of 10 students maximum in each classroom, leveraging relationships, and then the SEL interventions that we have in place have really paid huge dividends in regards to our student success.
All right. That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Every student I've ever spoken to that has been through SCOPE just speaks to how successful it was for them and how it changed their life. So thank you to you and all your staff.
You're welcome. I have a wonderful staff, and it's the best job in the world.
And I love that Robert's still here.
Yeah, he is an accomplished jiu-jitsu, and he should be at practice, but they wanted to support me through my presentation, so that just tells you how dedicated the students and families are to us and just how wonderful they truly are.
Yeah, thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
All right.
Okay, Oakville Elementary, Megan Ochoa.
Good evening. My name is Megan Ochoa, and I'm the proud principal of Oakville Elementary School. This is my second year serving this wonderful community, and I look forward to sharing tonight with you some of the wonderful things that are happening at Oakville. So this year, we have been working with our staff to create a new mission statement, and our leadership team came up with Oakville Lions Engage in Learning for Success. So we're really focusing in on that engagement of students, and our purpose for schools is learning, whether that's learning about themselves, others, or academics. That is our focus. We are also still working on creating our vision statement, and we hope to roll these out this summer and into the fall. Our theme that came about last year is This is Me, This is We. At Oakville Elementary, we are loved for our individuality and value the strength of our community. And I hope that through this presentation, you see that community piece come through because I do feel like that encompasses who we are at OES. So exactly who are we? This graph here does show our building demographics. And at first sight, it may not seem as diverse as other schools within our district, but we do know that all of our 395 students come to us with individual needs, individual talents, different backgrounds and different cultures, and we embrace all of those and celebrate the individuality of all 395 students that we serve. We also have 65 staff members, both certified and classified staff members. And I have to say, they are some of the most dedicated educators that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. And all of the successes that I talk about tonight really go back to them. And some of them are sitting in our audience. So thank you for being here to support. It goes without saying that it's not just about our students and staff. We have a lot of other people in our OES family, as we call it. So we have our bus drivers that play an important role. You can see our SRO officer, Officer Mike. The students and families have a great relationship with him. We had lots of construction going on thanks to Prop S this year, and even the construction workers became part of our OES family, teaching some lessons in kindergarten, so that was fun. In addition, our new art teacher, Mr. Adams, has made some connections with some local businesses. So if you went to Oberweis sometime in the fall, you may have seen some student artwork advertising for Oberweis in their windows. And again, our PTO and parent and family involvement, we could not do the things that we do without them. So they are a huge part of that is who we are as our OES family. Tonight, I'm really going to focus on our school improvement plan. It looks similar to many of the other elementary school buildings in our district. For tonight's purposes, I'm going to focus on that reading, math, and SEL goals. So we have been very intentional about following the continuous improvement type cycle and structure. So for each of these, we have set a goal. In reading, our goal is all students will read on grade level or attain annual typical growth from fall to spring as measured by the iReady. And we're really focusing in on that growth piece this year. For each goal, we set out what we want all students to be able to access in their instruction. So no matter what classroom you walk in, these are the things that we would expect to see so that each student gets an equitable education. You can see that we look to see if all of those things that we have in the do are working. And from fall to winter, iReady reading benchmark scores, you can see we are making a lot of progress. We started, our tier 1 was at 34% in the green and moved to 61% just recently. So that's a huge celebration for us. And that red at risk has really reduced from 25% to 8%. And we hope that in the spring that will, the green will grow bigger and the red will get smaller. But what I really want to celebrate is that growth over time. So looking longitudinally where we've come in the last several years, you can see that our students are making great progress. So in 2019 to 2020, we only had 54% of our students at the end of the year reading where they were supposed to be according to the iReady reading diagnostic. Last school year, we had 71%. So I think that's a huge growth. But as I mentioned in our school improvement goal, we are also looking at our students making a year's growth over time. And you can see here, we are also making improvements. So last year, we had 55% of our students that made that full year's growth. And we're working so that number just increases this school year. So how is all of that possible? Really, it's about being strategic, using that continuous improvement model, using our interventionists wisely. So we are looking every quarter at how students are achieving, working in data teams with our interventionists, our specialists, our classroom teachers, working as a team to look at each student individually and personalize their education to meet their needs. And you can see that is helping us to improve. Not only are we trying to personalize education for our students, our teachers are always learning and growing as well. And so we want to personalize their education as well. Each of them comes with different talents, different group of students that they're meeting. So we use that data, and our teachers have been able to personalize their professional development. So currently we have 2 personalized PD cohorts, one looking at teaching vocabulary because we noticed on the iReady data That was a domain that was difficult for our students, and another that's working on that phonics piece, going through letters training. At the end of the year, these teachers will present their learning so that that learning can be building-wide. So for math, kind of the same process. We set a goal, we look at what the teachers are doing, and then we go and see, is that goal being met? So you can see here from winter, again, we made significant progress. 21% scored at Tier 1 in that standard view in the fall, and just recently 49% scored at Tier 1. You can also see, though, if you compare reading to math, that math is an area that's more challenging for some of our students, so we have some things in place Tier 1-wise, thinking about what we can look at, and I'll talk about that in just a minute when I talk about our personalized PD. But again, the bigger celebration is that growth over time. And so again, in math, you can see we have more students performing at grade level last year than we had the 2 prior years. And if we look at student growth, again, we had a huge improvement from 19% in 2019, 2020, all the way to 49% of our students that are meeting that year's growth. So we hope to continue raising that. Again, we do those data teams just like we do in reading and math, and we use our interventionist and our classroom teachers to kind of look at each student individually and personalize their learning for their needs. We do find that they are making progress based on that. So I spoke earlier about our math being more challenging. So what we want to do for students is really be able to meet their needs in that math classroom. And so looking at how we can differentiate instruction for all of the students with one teacher in a classroom of 24. And we believe that the math workshop approach, working with our curriculum department, is a great Tier 1, what we would expect for every student to be able to receive as far as math instruction. So we have a small group, as well as our academic committee, working on implementing that at Tier 1, so that's consistent throughout our building. Our personalized PD has been working hard to share that information, and at the end of the school year, they will be doing that. SEL goal. So we've used panorama data to set a goal. In SEL, we're focusing mainly on that emotional regulation goal. So can students successfully, independently regulate their emotions? And we chose that because our panorama data showed that that was most challenging. Again, we have our action steps. What are we doing to address that? And we have implemented zones of regulation. We have daily classroom meetings that focus on SEL, in addition to those other steps that you see on the screen. So if you look at teacher perspective over time, this is what teachers in grades K through 2 believe they're seeing when they look at students' emotional regulation. You can see that we've made a huge increase from fall of 2018. We now have 87% of our teachers responding favorably that students can emotionally regulate in grades K through 2. If you look at our student perspective, you can see we've increased from 2018, but you kind of see a pattern there from winter to fall into both last year and the year prior. And we believe that is due to not having instruction over the summer over how to emotionally regulate, coming back into the school, finding school challenging. So how do we address that? And I think those classroom meetings and that hitting zones of regulation hard at the beginning of the year, reminding students that they're loved and how to deal with hard things is really important. We do have an SEL interventionist that meets with students. This slide does not show, however, the students that are getting Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention by our counselor and outside counseling organizations as well, as such as Lutheran Family Services. Again, we have a personalized PD cohort that is working strictly on SEL, and they are working on those restorative practices to help build relationships between students and themselves, relationships between the students and teachers, and just relationships in general. Although it's not a goal, the sense of belonging is not a school improvement goal. It is what our theme is around, and I believe that our community is so such a part of who we are. I thought that it was important to share our sense of belonging data. And so here you can see that the staff's data on how they feel and how do they feel valued members of the school community has increased strongly over the last year. Also, you can see the student perception. One of the questions on Panorama is overall, how much do you feel like you belong at your school? 78% of our students responded favorably, which was up 3 points from the prior Panorama data. And you can see, compared to the school district and nationally, we are doing very well. So how do we get our students to feel like they belong? Well, it's a lot of things. It's all those relationships that teachers make with them, with families, valuing their independence and valuing what they bring to our community. But a big part of that also is those OES clubs. And so you can see here that we have a lot of clubs that are offered for all the unique talents and interests of our students. And we have about 165-ish students that participate in those clubs. Finally, we invite you guys to be a part of our OES family. So you can follow us on Facebook, but even better, come join us in person at Oakville Elementary. And thank you for having me tonight, and I will answer any questions you might have.
All right. I think everybody already asked them, and they're on e-board, so I think we're good. But thank you, and very impressive improvement, and we appreciate. And thank you to all your teachers and staff and everybody at your school. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Next is action items by consent. I believe we need to pull A. So if I could get a motion to approve action items by consent B through F.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now we need to pull we need to pull one of those minutes for the January 24, 6:30 meeting and vote on those separately.
Okay.
I believe. So if I can get a motion to approve, Scott, you're going to have to abstain on that one. Okay. To approve the January 24, 6:30 meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, abstain. Motion carries 6-0-1. Okay, if I can please get a motion to approve the January 19th and the January 24th 3:30 meeting, special meeting, Mrs. Bridgewater. And then
So moved.
Okay. And then, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. And if I can get a motion, if I can please get authorization to close session.
Motion to enter.
Do we have anybody for open comments?
No.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Motion to enter a closed session meeting for the purpose of reading of minutes of meetings and corrections and approval of same and other items under the Missouri Section 610.021 subsections 1 through 21 and 610.022 subsections 1 through 6, hiring, firing, discipline, promoting particular employees, Section 610.0213, and individually identifiable persons, performance ratings or records pertaining to employees are applications for employment, Section 610.02113, legal action, causes of action or litigation, Section 610.021.
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Grace?
Yeah.
Peggy, yes. Okay, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, thank you.